LMD Magazine and EFM present Biz Talk, taking an in-depth look at today's biz landscape.
Welcome to another edition of LMD-E FM Biz Talk. Today we're speaking to Director at GAJMA Co and Non-Executive and Non-Independent Director on the Stockbrokering Get Firm Board, Jithendran Gajendran. Good morning, Mr. Gajendran, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. It's nice to see you guys here.
In your view, how has Sri Lanka fared under the current macroeconomic conditions?
It is felt that now at this point of time that within the country that Sri Lanka is not performing very well when you consider the macroeconomic condition. But if you take the facts, that is to do with the numbers, compared to other countries, we are growing at a significant level. We are growing at around 4.5%, which is in the top 20% of the countries in the world, which is not bad. But the issue that most of us face is that as a country, when we consider ourselves, we can consider ourselves like a company. And when you consider in that sense, you understand that the Sri Lanka has its flaws. One of our biggest flaws is our debt to GDP. And the debt to GDP is a significant and a big problem to us. When this problem surfaces and comes out, we can fall into a category called dead countries walking. Dead countries walking are the category where if you fail, your chances of failing are higher. Normally countries that fall into that category will have around 6 factors that can be a big problem for them. One of the factors is that they do not understand that there is a super cycle, like a Great Depression in the 1910s, or there was a crisis in 2008, which can happen again. We generally only think about the recent past and not the long-term past, which is a serious problem. Then the second issue is we follow a formula. It can be hyper growth, it can be growth through investment or government spending, which all have their flaws. So as a country, we have to understand that there are flaws, and we have to look at a contrarian view, an opposing view to the general economy as a whole. The third issue is we have manias. There's hysteria. Right now they might say there is a land bubble, prices of land has gone up. So in Sri Lanka as a country, we have to worry about global bubbles, which we must not also get involved in. We got into one of those with the oil hedging situation, where we thought the oil prices were going up, and we decided to hedge it. That is one issue. Fourth one is customers. So in our perspective, what are customers? Customers are tourists, foreigners, external people, as much as they are Sri Lankans. So foreigners come in, they may come in for tourism, but tourism alone won't strengthen our country. We need export, we need development, we need other sectors of technology that have to come in. The fifth criteria is we must be very careful that we don't fall into a tectonic shift. A tectonic shift is where a country does not realize there's something dramatically changing. One of the things that are dramatically changing is that Sri Lanka and the world has research and development, and 3D printing, for example, has come in, which could destroy some of our sectors if we are not careful. And the sixth most, our leaders within the country have to be closer to the focus point. We must have administrators who understand their customers, and their understanding has to go beyond talking to the people within our country.
Have the revised taxation policies shown the expected results in your opinion?
Sri Lanka, as for tax policies, the tax policy as a whole have some policies which are of interesting significance. They are now trying to focus to realign our policies in such a way that we do not give benefits to the people that do not deserve benefits. Our performance should be focused. So for example, unit trusts have been moved out of the tax brackets. The reason is that the unit trusts are being told to focus on their key competence. Their key competence of unit trust was to bring in the small person into the network. They were supposed to go to the individual and make them and allow them to invest into the country as a whole. Give them a share of the world, as they say. But what happened was, because of the tax benefits, big corporates and big investors invested in this unit trust to gain tax benefits. They are 80 to 90% of the investments are not from small individuals. That's why you do not find advertising of unit trusts. The other policies which are questionable or interesting can be dependent on the person-to-person view. So if you are having benefits removed for some sectors, which is the new focus of the IMF, which is not an institution that is supported by the general public in Sri Lanka very well, we have to understand we have debt obligations. And as debt obligations, our biggest debtor is the IMF. So if you consider, all of you all who are working in companies realize that you have a debtor, you do not work for the debtor, but you have to realize if your debt is significant, he has influence on your decision. So our policies are directed towards that. But will they result in change? Will they move the country? That's still to be seen.
What is the way forward for Sri Lanka in terms of increasing the country's revenue?
Revenue, when we consider as government or tax revenue, is a confusing and complicated problem. We have different people giving us different advices. One is the IMF. IMF is giving an advice that they should change the law and come up with a new law, forgetting 100 years of experience and training in the law, and the laws which have got derived and modified and developed further. This is a dangerous picture. What we should instead look at is take an understanding from the wire negative philosophy. What that means is, once there was a question asked. There was a question asked from Michelangelo. Michelangelo was asked, how did he develop Adam, the sculpting of the beautiful Adam? When he was asked that, he said, I took a piece of rock and I removed everything which was not Adam. And what I got is what you see. And it's a beautiful artwork, sculpting, which is Adam. What we have to understand that tax revenue is a complex strategy. Everyone will give you different solutions to increase the GDP. My philosophy is a little bit different. If you want to get some asset, you have to water the asset. You have to give it nourishment, you have to encourage it. So with the Indian Revenue Department, you have to train them. You need to develop them. You have to send them for training, which has not happened in significant level for significant number of years. We have to understand that our administrators get paid pittance compared to global administrators like the ones in Singapore, which leads significantly to corruption and also the inability to take competent people from the corporate sector into the government sector, as there is no merit-oriented pay, which only leaves a significant population of people who are comfortable with what they get.
What do you forecast for Sri Lanka's economy in 2017?
This is a difficult question. I am not a person who generally tries to forecast, but what we must understand that forecast and development of people is not a straightforward situation or a solution. We must understand that in the future we will have to focus on research and development, on our people, on the many resources that we have. But we must understand in this period that we as a whole must go against the grain of thinking. The current grain of thinking is that tourism and construction will do well in the next year. But that is not my thinking. My thinking is that yes, tourism and construction will do very well, but those are sectors where you have to be a big boy to play. The real development should come at the smallest of levels. From the individual who is in a Morato University or a Japura University who starts a startup, that is where we in the future will figure things out. But we have some things that are moving in the right direction. Right to information is one element of that. We have to think in the future that Sri Lanka will do well And I believe in Sri Lanka, as a Sri Lankan, that we as a whole together with all communities, we have a belief that we can change this world.
Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Gajendran.
Thanks.
Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for more insights from our business community. You can also log on to efm.lk and lmd.lk/lmdtv for a visual experience of Biz Talk.